hi. So we did that. So let's see if I can share screen. So I'm going to talk today about data pollution. And the first thing I wanted to say that actually it's a phrase that it's not non-official term, and some researchers use it to describe the energy that is wasted using big data. Some other researchers describe it as use it to describe the leak of personal data to the public. And I took it to my area of research, where I'm trying to understand the way that the data that we're gathering about ourselves, that we ourselves gathering about ourselves, is polluting and obscuring our intuitive ways of understanding the world, our inner and intuitive ways of understanding the world. And I'll start with a short story. So we just moved to London not long ago, and we used to live in a very small village in Israel. And while I was traveling in the night in the streets of London, it was I heard something that was very weird to me. I heard the birds singing during the night, and it was so weird that I did what each one of us would do. I went to Google and I asked Google, why do birds sing at night? And the answer was very simple: light pollution. The birds understand the light, the artificial light, understand it as daylight, and that's why they sing at night. And this behave of the wildlife species that look at this kind of pollution as something attractive made me think about the way that we are behaving to all the data that we are gathering around ourselves, which we understand it in a way as something very, very good and attractive. You know, data was the driving force of the 21st century achievement, but actually it has its costs, and it is in a way impacting the way we perceive the world. And I want to look at this issue through three lenses. The first one is the self-measuring devices and wearables that we all know. The second one is a philosophical discourse. And the third one is the artistic critics. So let's start with the personal apps. This app is called the Baby Book. It was designed and made for parents to help them raise the baby born. And it is, in a way, delivering or mediating the child to the parents by external device. And if you see on the right, this is a real child, this is a real baby, that's Tom. And for the parents, all this data gathered is Tom. They look at this screen and they see Tom. And I want to point at the words that are used while these apps are designed, these applications are designed. For instance, here, the word easier, reminder, assistant, all this, the way that these words were chosen are for a purpose. They were chosen to deliver a certain stance, a certain message to the users, to the parents. The second app that I want to show here, that's an app that I'm using. It's called Runkeeper. I'm a very light runner, so you don't really have to look at the details of the numbers, but I do want to point again at the words that are used while these apps were designed. Nice job, fastest, smarter, things like that. And I especially like the central screen in the middle, where it measures and shows my elevation during running. That makes me feel really great after I'm running, because it makes me feel like I was climbing Mount Everest, if not more. And actually, that's Hyde Park. that's running through the Hyde Park. And what I want to point here is that there is always the apps, the data that we get through the apps is never objective. It is always designed in a way that someone wanted us to understand to understand the data. It is delivered in a very non-objective way. From these two examples, we can see that data, that we use technology to mediate between our body and ourselves. We saw in the two examples, and we perceive the data that we get from the apps as supreme way of interpreting the world. And the question, if looking at this issue through the data pollution title, there is a strong voice, a very strong voice of the data that obscures our intuitive, multi-layered way of understanding the world. And that is at the expense of our inner knowledge. I want to take a minute to point out what kind of the nature of these two ways of perceiving the world. So the first one that I call the embodied one is a way of is a language that with a lot of question marks, a lot of hesitations, a language with many voices. Actually, it's a weaker language. The other way of understanding the world through the data is a very strong language. It speaks with certainty, and it is made and designed to give answers, not to ask questions. And now, suppose our mind is a territory. There is a battle on our territory where the technological knowledge is trying to conquer the territory from this ancient and weaker and subjective embodied way. And in a way, it is trying to illegitimate it. If we're thinking about the example of the apps, there are certain things that we might feel about our baby, and then the app is telling us a different story, a different voice with a very strong voice. We will usually believe the app more than we would believe our ancient and embodied way of intuitive thinking. Now let's see what the philosophers thought about this issue. So actually, the discourse there is a very strong discourse about this matter, where on one side is the philosophers that are talking about the empirical method of gathering knowledge, and on the other side is the embodied method that unveils the individual's experience. And I want to start on the first side. So Foucault mentioned that from the modernist period, humanity preferred the scientific over the subjective order, using measurements with common units as the ultimate truth. And this is very good illustrated by the words of Lord Kelvin from the 19th century. He was a physicist. He said, which said that when you can measure what you are speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot measure it, when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager. So it was a very strong belief. It is still a very strong belief that which caused or was a good ground for the growth of phrenology, which was a popular pseudoscience Rassic's theory. And I wanted to bear in mind that it was during the colonist era, and it gave a great boost to the colonist point of view, Rassic's point of view. Now, on the other side, on the other hand, were philosophers like Derrida, Merleau-Ponty, and Husserl and more, who called to deconstruct the Western dominance that's controlled by authority of Logos. And they enabled a place for multi-layered voices, and for and understanding the world through objective and embodied experience. And it gave a legitimacy to post-colonialism, to post-feminism, and to voices that have more than one stance, more layered, more colorful, more bigger variety of voices. So after seeing that, we still raise the question: what pushes us to prefer technical self-measuring over other subjective understanding of ourselves? And I want to suggest an idea that we're suffering now from a new FOMO, which is now the new FOMO is the fear of losing knowledge. I want to use Foucault's power knowledge theory to explain it. We're gathering data, we're gathering self-data, which we perceive in knowledge, and which we understand as power to control ourselves, our body. And we're afraid of losing this knowledge because we interpret it as losing control. And that means losing data, which means that losing data is losing knowledge, which means losing power, and by that, losing control of our body and on our behavior. And that leads us to use more and more apps to help us to control our life. Now let's make a quick view what artists had to say about this issue. I want to start with the work that I really love of Marcel Duchamp, which is more than 100 years old. And when Marcel Duchamp created this work, I think I know he was part of the philosophical discussion that I described before. And what he was doing, he was trying to, he was opposing the trust in measurements by making rulers. This is 3 1-meter rulers. He was making rulers that are ill-suited for measurements. He was criticizing the monopoly of knowledge. By that way, he was criticizing the monopoly of knowledge. Kind of, I think, making fun of it. That was Duchamp's way of reacting to things that he was criticizing. More contemporary artists, Jenny Seville and Olivia Sterling, are reacting to the passion of perfect appearance that we know very well, and they did so by marking the body in the numeric desired size. That's what Jenny Seville did, or the lettering desired color. That's on the left. And actually, what Olivia Sterling did said that the desired color here is the brown or the black. There is B written there, so maybe it's the brown of the cake is the desired color here. And again, she's using names of color to show that we have desire for something that is numeric. Going further, Felipe González Torres did this work when he realized that his partner was diagnosed with AIDS, and he was trying to show the time that was left for them to live together as partners. Of course, he used time as something that is measured by minutes, days, hours, years. And on the same kind of way of thinking, Boltanski made this countdown of seconds that counts the seconds from the day he was born until the day he would die. And actually, the counter stopped working when Boltanski died at his death. And the two works are pointing to our very deep feeling and understanding that the time that we have to live is something that should be counted by numbers, by minutes, hours, days, and years, and not time that we have to experience or feel it, no matter how many datas or how many digits could get into this space of the time that we have to live. The last, that's my last work. Okay.
Sure.
Just finishing. The last example is talking about face recognition. Adam Harvey made this painting on faces to sabotage the way the face recognition algorithm can't work that way. And by that, he made visual humans who are visible to humans and are not visible to machine. And he was reversing the situation where the human vision is supreme over the machine. So I want you to go home with two questions. The first one is, are we reacting like the singing birds, believing that the artificial light is the new ultimate truth, and doing it by using external devices to mediate our body to ourselves? And the second question, are we letting the new developments to pollute and obscure our inherent ways of reading the world? Thank you.